So welcome back to another one of our business conversations where we delve a little bit deeper into what's important in the world of professional services with business chats that are really important to you out there. We've got a huge amount of these that we've shot already in 2024, and we've got loads from previous years as well. So you don't want to miss any of those. So make sure you not only like this video, but you subscribe to our channel. And today we're zeroing in on law and what's more important, not just law itself, but the business of law. What makes a law firm work? What's really, really important? And to do that, I'm delighted to have a friend, someone I've known a number of years now, Courtney, who's MD and founder of the Business of Law. So hopefully she knows a few things about what we're discussing today. So welcome, Karen.
Thanks, Ben.
Just to get started, tell us a little bit about your career journey and what's got you to where you are and why you founded the Business of Law.
Sure. Well, I've been working mainly with lawyers for the bulk of my career, with a bit of a segue out to have children and property development, as well as some coaching and other professional service industries, but mainly law. So many years ago, I got my foot in the door as a teenager and was just doing admin type of roles in law firm, did my legal exec papers. Cool. And then worked as a legal exec, but then found that I wasn't particularly interested in conveyancing. I was far more interested in the actual business and what made everything tick and what made the people tick. So I went out and did legal recruiting and I did that on and off for many years.
Yeah.
And in particular, I did a lot of partnership placements. So I was often at the bottom of the cliff for a lot of fallouts.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see what I could do about that. So the other things that I've been doing with the consulting have been around IT, practice management, business development, general management, HR. So the evolution of having Business of Law it's just where everything ended up. It just was a culmination of all the things that I'd learned and had a passion for over the years.
So bringing that passion and skill set together to create your own business.
Correct. That's the one. Yeah, so it's been a good move and, it's very varied and, it's been a lot of fun and I like to be able to do something that can really assist the legal profession. I've found that during that course of time when I've been doing quite a bit of partner, especially equity partner recruitment, that I wanted to do something about the fact that a lot of law firms, the partnerships weren't as functional as they could be. So although it was great, I had good candidates, I could bring and put somewhere else, but because it was so disruptive and so distressing for both the partners who were moving out and for the firms themselves, I wanted to ensure that people were going to be able to stick with what they were doing and to be happy. So I wrote a workbook on due diligence for going into law partnership, which I've got people to explore all those other reasons, other things that they should be checking out other than just the financial and the client base.
Brilliant. So Karen, building on from that, why do you think some law firms struggle with certain aspects of actually just running a business?
Well, running a law firm successfully is actually a very tricky thing to do. And when you think of the evolution of law firms in relatively recent times, it was only not so long ago for quite a few people who are still practicing when they didn't have they had set fees, so they couldn't do marketing. Yeah. They had limited numbers of people that could be in partnership. And obviously they had a secretary who would do all their typing. They didn't have computers on their desks. So although now we'd expect everybody to be, completely IT savvy and onto a few things, it's still there in the psyche of many firms that those things are still quite difficult. I think the other thing too is that with the expectation of changes with business development, with IT, with managing their team, bringing them up through the ranks. Yeah. I think a lot of lawyers are not actually trained for that. The law degree doesn't cover any of it. So unless you've got the aptitude and the interest,
yes, absolutely,
then those things don't necessarily come. And also there's that big thing of you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think those are very big challenges for law firms, and that's where it's really good to have a good management team or external consultants come in and help them with those aspects of running a practice, because it's extraordinarily hard to do that successfully on your own.
So I've warmed you up now, so let's go to a slightly easy question, right?
Okay.
Looking at the legal sector in the next 3 years or so, what are going to be the main factors that are going to change things? What's going to evolve?
I think there's a lot of expectation around AI making significant differences.
Yeah.
And although it's not completely there yet, it's still very much a work in progress. It is moving along very, very quickly. And so it's really key, I think, for law firms to keep up to date with those developments that are happening now.
Yeah.
And that will make big changes, not in just how documents are produced, but in how they manage client expectations and how they manage pricing. Because obviously if things take a little bit less time because of AI, it doesn't mean that the work hasn't gone in behind that to do it, and you're still being able to provide a service that's of significant value to that client. So that way that they look at pricing, I think, is going to have to make a major change from the hourly rate.
So we're talking about the holy grail value-based pricing, not hourly rate pricing.
It will be that way. So the discussions with the clients are going to have to be modified, and there's going to need to be a lot of training, I think, on how the law firms manage that aspect of their practice.
Which is a huge change.
It is a huge change. It will also make a huge impact on how they deal with the more junior lawyers coming through. Their roles are going to change a lot, and how they do their research, how they bring it to the fore. And so they're going to have to rethink the whole career development stage, because it will impact, I think, quite significantly how they do that as well. So that on the IT side, I think that's probably going to be one of the main things. But then, of course, we're living in a really volatile world. And so we're all really at the mercy of that. We don't know exactly the impact that that's going to have for our clients, and then obviously that affects lawyers. So I think another thing we need to do in doing that is to try and be aware that there are going to be these significant changes, and trying to, I suppose, bolster our ability to change with the flow. Not an easy thing to do, but you have to be a little bit aware that there are going to be changes that people need to react to quicker than they might have done otherwise.
Absolutely. So, Karen, one of the things that many, in fact, most firms struggle with is transition planning and putting a good transition plan in place. One, they fail to do it. So how do they actually do it? And secondly, how do they actually make that stick?
Very tricky. Very, very tricky, because a lot of firms leave it way past the time that they should do. You can talk to them about it and say, well, we need to make plans, 5-year, 10-year, 2-year, whatever plans, so that they can get to where they want to be at that time. But they leave it too late. They say, I think we've got more time. And by the time they get around to it, I've seen many firms sort of just shrink down and close their doors because they didn't do it in time.
Yes.
The other thing too is that if they do it earlier on, then they're far more likely to succeed and continue to be profitable and have an ongoing firm that's still there, and that they can get themselves out of in a better financial position if they do this wisely. So I think one of the key problems that firms have in doing that is that it's a lack of clear communication with the partners and a clear understanding of what everybody wants, because you'll find that there will be talk on the surface. There'll be situations where they'll have partner meetings and they'll all agree in principle on some of the key things, but nothing happens. You see it time and time again. And I think part of it is because as I say, that poor communication, because what has happened generally in those things is that you get one or two partners that probably are a little bit stronger in their personality. People don't feel that they can talk.
Yeah.
And so what I generally do to start the ball rolling in those sorts of situations is I'll survey them, and I'll do an in-depth survey, not just about what they want for the firm and where they see it currently and where they want it to go, and a lot more drill down questions in that, but also what they're wanting out of their career, what they're wanting out of their life, how do they see themselves eventually winding down or stepping out, so that they can have it on their terms. So if I've done a questionnaire with everybody and got them to fill it in, you find that some people will put a lot more effort into that, and some will be yes, no type of answers. So I sit down with each one of them, and then I really drill down, and I pull it out, and I pull it out, and I pull it out. So at the end of that, what I've got is some really good information that I could do side-by-side comparisons on. During those discussions, you can generally get them to agree to some of those things that are important for the firm going forward, and talk to them about ways that you can get there, that sometimes they'll need to compromise a bit to be able to get what they want, as well as what the firm needs to do to succeed. And then once I've pulled all that together, I've got a report that I can do side by side, and then I get the partners all in a room, and I'll collectively have the response to those questions and those issues that were brought up to me, because sometimes I'll be brought in and for a completely different reason, that one partner says, oh, well, we're not getting on, or we need to make some decision on this. But, like when I started, I will say to each of the partners, well, what do you want to get out of this?
Yeah.
And, so we can collectively pull together something which allows them to have a plan going forward for where they all want to be as a business and individually. And surprisingly, at that particular one, when you present it like that, and you've got everybody's thoughts in there, everybody's had a really good opportunity to say what they actually really do feel, you can get something that's a really workable document. But not just that, you've got an action plan. Key. There's no point in having these meetings if you don't have something that's going to take it further.
Absolutely.
So we have an action plan. We've got assignment of responsibilities, who's going to do what and when, how they're going to report back, and what the expectations are going to be as they report back as well. So then they're accountable.
Yes.
They're accountable. And if they do find that they don't get onto things, so, it's very easy for them to say, oh, well, I was busy with client work, and of course that's more important. They've really got to understand that their business is incredibly important. They've got to have that in place before that they can properly service their clients. So you have to put in there some sort of parameters, some sort of, I suppose, rewards, and also some sort of things to make sure that they do what they do. And it could be that if they're not pulling their weight, that there is some sort of consequence, and it could be financial.
Okay.
It could be financial, because that's another thing that you want to have a look at with all of this is what are you doing as a practice, and what are people contributing? So, you've got to have very clearly laid out who does what and what their responsibilities are and what it means. And everybody's got their part. Everybody's going to be held accountable by the other partners.
So to nail this transition thing, we need to air and share.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have an action plan.
Yeah.
We need accountability.
Yeah.
And we need some sort of reward or carrot or stick at the end of it to make sure it's
there. Yeah, you do. I think when you've got all of that put together, you've got a much clearer understanding. And it actually doesn't hurt at the end of these to have a memorandum of understanding that you draw up.
Yeah.
So it's not a contract, but it sets in place what the tone of it is. So from there also, I find that sometimes drawing up an organisational chart when it pertains to those sorts of things, giving each person their responsibility, who's responsible for that particular action, who else is going to be working within their team to be able to achieve that. So it may be that the person who's given that responsibility doesn't do all that work. They're putting people together to get it done. So I find that for me, with clients that I've dealt with, that's far more effective than just having a meeting where you discuss and generally agree that, oh yeah, we've got to do something.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Karen, the legal market is highly, highly competitive.
Yep.
And the pace of change all around us in tech is ever evolving. So how do firms get ahead of this curve to maximise profits and improve their operations going forward?
Sure. Well, we've already talked about AI, but in terms of IT for law firms, there's a lot of different systems. There's various practice management, HR systems, business development systems, etc., library systems that they need to have a look at and consider what's going to be important to them. So they've got to do a cost-benefit analysis in anything that they choose and look whether it's going to add to their bottom line.
Yep.
Not just in the short term, but in the longer term, because sometimes, you're not going to get that profitability back in the first instance. It might take a little while.
Yeah.
But the cost, obviously, is also in terms of the time spent implementing and training and bringing people up to speed and using those. So, I would suggest that people do, keep up to date with what's going on, look at the savings and time and effort, etc., and the value that it brings to their business. Also, what it does for the clients, if they can provide a better level of service, and importantly, as I say, the return on investment for them. So that's really important. So, go to the seminars, go to the webinars, ask other people who've got those systems, look at them, and when you do buy them.
Yeah.
Use them properly, because there's no point in having a whiz-bang system if you're not actually putting the right data in there. You have to make sure that you're utilising them properly, otherwise you're wasting your time.
Couldn't agree more. So in terms of running a law firm legal business, how important is practice management? And can this be done by technology now, or does it still need human input?
Well, good technology is important, but, it's just a tool.
Yep.
It's just a tool. And so human input is obviously imperative. And it's like I just said before, make sure that you utilise it properly, make sure you put in the right information, and think about what you're trying to achieve from the information that you put in, because then you can get valuable reports that will allow you to do things that you want. So, for example, if you've got all the client information, all the different businesses and interests, etc., that they're involved in, the cross-reference to different things, business areas of interest that they might have, or family interests, etc., that they might have, then you've got really good information for, business development, being in contact with the client, being able to be not just somebody who works on a matter, but who actually has a relationship with the client. And when you've got all that information that's in there, then you can pull out reports that are really meaningful for doing business development. So if you want to do a really good client-based analysis and say, okay, well, who are the clients that I'm going to directly contact that are interested in X? All human input, but utilising a tool.
And that skill of practice management is still massively important in law firms?
100%. 100%.
Building a great culture is the goal, the aim of pretty much every organisation out there. So how do you help law firms build that great culture based on their kind of values and principles? How do you go about doing that?
Well, I think most people would accept that the culture is, how it's already done, or the way it is around here. So if they want to improve it and they want to be committed to improving it, it's not just about saying, oh, let's say a few nice things about what we'd like us to be and stick it on the reception desk. Because that's not a culture.
No.
Yeah. So I find the best way to get buy-in is to have everybody's input. So one of the ways I'll do it is I'll have a series of statements about things that are quite good for, it would be a good, healthy, strong, functional type of practice, and look at it across a number of different areas, how they deal with each other, how they deal with clients, etc., etc. So I'll have a series of statements, and I'll get the both the owners and the people who work there to comment where they think they sit on those particular ones, and get them to come back and talk about how they think it should be within the practice and where they would like it to be. So once you've got agreement on what you'd actually like it to be, then you've got to give it teeth. So again, if you're going to give it teeth for something like culture, you have to, again, have rewards, something to celebrate. And in some instances, you've got to let them decide how are we going to deal with it when people are really falling away from what we actually want, what's ideal, depending on severity, etc. But to have people, give people the dignity, I suppose, of being able to say, well, this is how we would like it to be dealt with, or how we'd like it to be rewarded. You're far more likely to get buy-in than if you just go and tell them. So again, once you've got all that together, then you can build a proper culture statement that is something that they're going to be working towards, and how, you give them the ideas, well, how are we going to do this? What do you think we can do to be able to get there? And then after time, when it's practiced and you've got that buy-in, then eventually that does become the way things are around here. And for new people coming in too, you need to really talk about the way it is around here, the way we like it. Really give them that heads up on how you work the culture within the practice, and you can get a bit of an idea of how they react to that culture to see whether you've got somebody who's going to fit in within that.
Brilliant. So improving profitability is the goal of most law firms. So what can they do? What can they actually put in place to improve their financial performance?
Lots of things.
Yeah, it's a big question.
I think if we take it down to one aspect of it, which is utilising the client base that you've already got, I think that a lot of firms don't necessarily service their clients holistically. So I think if they maintain, if they maintain regular contact with their clients, if they really spend time, get to know them, go to their businesses, see how they operate, see what's going on, and ask people who are there what the issues are that they're facing, then they're going to get a much better idea of issues that might be of interest to them. So when it comes time for commercial changes or legislative changes that are going on, you can be a lot more proactive in going out and talking to those clients about things. You can follow up and say, hey, I know that we talked about such and such, or you were interested in this, or hey, this is coming through and I know this is going to impact your business, so I want to give you a heads up. So you're much more likely to get loyalty from that client, because they're not going to be thinking of you as just somebody who did one deal for them. And you're going to be able to holistically deal with all of their legal needs. So that might mean that it's shared amongst the firm. And I know that one of the problems within many law firms is that some partners tend to hog client for themselves. And there's a really good reason that happens in a lot of firms, which I could go into at length at any other time. But one of the ways that you can do it is have that person still remain as the client relationship manager and the person who's mainly in contact with that client, so that they really understand all aspects of what's happening with that client, but that they feed that work to relevant people within the practice so that they are really embedded as a client of the firm, and they can really be looked after very, very well. I think that's important. But, there's obviously a lot of other things that they can do in bringing in new business as well, and keeping up to date, keeping abreast of changes in the market.
Which is fascinating to me, because we'd obviously here in the Weedy Valley go down that route, but we're in quite a squiffy market at the moment now. The economy's not great, not just here in New Zealand, but globally. Lots of change and uncertainty. So you've really gone for that proactive part of going out and bringing more revenue in or increasing your market share.
You have to.
Yeah, but a lot of firms will instantly in this kind of market go the other extreme and go to cutting costs, trimming the fat.
No. That's really a very it's not a useful way to do it. You've really got to look forward and say, okay, well, these things are changing, these things are different, these things are going to be affecting my client as much as they're probably going to affect us. So what can we do to buoy up our clients? Now, that's going to be more instruction. So therefore, your profitability, if you're thinking laterally on behalf of the client, you're far more likely to get a lot of good work in, as well as, thinking laterally for how you're going to approach potential new clients with those things that they're going to be facing.
It's my turn to say 100%. Thank you, Karen. We've had a great conversation, which brings us to our final question. Those that watch all of this series, or the majority of this series, will know what that question is. I really enjoy this one because it's in our heartland. So could you share with us one of your one tip about winning work, your one business development tip?
Okie dokie. Be knowledgeable, be willing to share, be able to make sure that you're at the right events. So whatever it is, the right spaces that you want to be in. So talk at events, write articles in the right journals and the right websites, and just make sure that you're out there and that you know what you're talking about.
Brilliant. So thank you, Karen. Thanks for coming in. I've really enjoyed our chat. We've covered an awful lot today, and the business of law is a fascinating subject. We probably got on for another 20 or 30 minutes if we chose to, but we really wanted to hone down on the things that are massively important to you. It's part of our business conversation series that we do, which gives you all these really great insights. You'll see them all here on our YouTube channel, so remember to like and, of course, subscribe. It's really important because then you won't miss any more of these conversations that come up and all our other great content, which will help fire up your business development marketing. So for now, goodbye.